Welcome back to Western Confessions, Episode 2. What you're about to hear are true confessions, raw, unfiltered, and spoken under the mask. These are voices from across the West, stories that could destroy families, break friendships, and even shatter lives if they were ever spoken in the open. Tonight, 5 secrets will be revealed. One about betrayal so deep it tore a family apart. One about a lie in court that sent an innocent man to prison. And one so raw, so disturbing, that you'll question how it was ever kept hidden. Remember, these are not stories. These are confessions. Stay with us and decide for yourself which truth haunts you most. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's begin.
Confession 1. I buried my own brother's secret until his murder came back to me. Do you know what it feels like to carry someone else's sin? So deep that it becomes heavier than your own. That's the curse my brother left me with. And I never thought it would end with blood. My name doesn't matter. Not tonight, not here. What matters is the secret I buried, and how it clawed its way back when my brother was murdered. We grew up in a small western town, the kind where everyone knows your name, where Friday night football is a religion, and where secrets are supposed to stay buried beneath polite smiles and Sunday sermons. My brother David was 3 years older than me. He was the golden boy, captain of the football team, smooth talker, loved by teachers, envied by boys and chased by girls. But behind the charm, behind the wide smile and easy laugh, lived a darkness I didn't want to see. I was 17 when I first stumbled upon it. It was a Saturday night, and I'd gone out to the shed to grab some tools for Dad. That's when I saw David, hands trembling, shirt stained with something dark, shoving a bloodied baseball bat into a trash bag. He froze when he saw me. I froze too. "Don't," he whispered. His eyes were wild, desperate. Not the brother I knew. "Don't you dare say a word." I wanted to ask, what happened? Who? Why? But the fear in his eyes silenced me. That night, I became his accomplice without ever lifting a finger. I swore to keep the secret, not because I was loyal, but because I was terrified. For years, I told myself it was nothing, that maybe it wasn't blood. Maybe it was just a fight gone wrong, a bad accident. But deep down, I knew. And deep down, I hated myself for knowing. Because sometimes, in the stillness of the night, I'd hear his footsteps pacing the hall. I'd hear him muttering under his breath, whispering names I didn't recognize. And sometimes, I'd catch him watching me, like he was making sure I'd never break. Fast forward 10 years, David was no longer the golden boy. He was a man hardened by secrets, by debts, by sins no one in town suspected. And then, one rainy night, I got the call. "Your brother's been found dead, shot execution style, dumped by the river outside town." They called it gang-related, but I knew better. The past had come back. For days I couldn't sleep. The funeral came and went. Neighbors cried. People praised his memory. But I couldn't. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw that night in the shed. I saw the blood. And I asked myself, was his murder the price of the secret I kept? Now, for the first time in my life, I'm ready to confess. Not because it will bring him back. Not because it will free me. But because maybe, just maybe, if I speak it aloud, I can finally lay him to rest. Do you want to know what my brother did that night? The truth will haunt you. You asked me what secret I carried from my brother. The truth is, I never thought it would follow me this far. It started 3 years before his death. We were drinking in the garage, just 2 brothers, laughing, swapping stories, trying to forget the weight of our lives. And then, he told me something that made my blood run cold. He leaned in, almost whispering, and said, "You can't ever repeat this. Not to Mom, not to Dad, not to anyone." I laughed at first, thought he was just drunk, but the look in his eyes wasn't playful. It was haunted. He told me he had been involved in something, a fight, a night that went too far. He swore it wasn't planned, that it wasn't supposed to end the way it did. But someone didn't make it home that night, and my brother's hands were stained with it. I remember staring at him, my heart pounding, my stomach sick. I wanted to shout, to call the police, to make him turn himself in. But then he grabbed my wrist so tight it left a mark. "If you say a word, it'll destroy everything. Not just me, us, our family. Do you want to see Mom break? Do you want Dad to bury me alive before the cops even do it?" I was 23. He was older, stronger. I had always looked up to him. And in that moment, he made me his accomplice without me even lifting a finger. I didn't call anyone. I didn't tell anyone. I buried his secret. But here's the thing about secrets. They rot. They don't stay buried forever. Every time I looked at him at the dinner table, every time he hugged Mum, every time he acted like nothing happened, I could feel the weight pressing harder on my chest. I was keeping a murderer's secret. And then, years later, when he was murdered, I thought I could finally breathe. But no, that's when it started to unravel, because his death brought his secret back to life. And now, instead of being free, I found myself trapped. Worse than before. I know you're wondering how, what came back to me, and why I'm still haunted. The truth is, his killer wasn't who the police thought, and the secret I buried for him might be the reason he's dead. When the police came to my door that night, I already knew what they were going to say. My brother was gone, murdered, shot in an alley like an animal. At first, I cried. I cried for him, for our parents, for the years we would never get back. But beneath those tears was a different storm, because I knew his death wasn't random. The police ruled it as gang-related violence. Wrong place, wrong time. But I knew better. I knew because of the secret. The man my brother hurt that night years ago, the one who didn't make it home. He had a family that never got answers, a family that never saw justice. And when I saw my brother's lifeless body, I knew justice had finally found him. But here's the part that keeps me awake at night. Days after the funeral, I got a letter. No name, no return address. Just a folded piece of paper slipped under my door. It said, blood for blood. Secrets don't stay buried. Yours will be next. My heart froze. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. I realized. Someone knew. Someone knew I had carried his secret. And now, I wasn't just an innocent brother. I was part of the cover-up. Every time I leave the house, I feel eyes on me. Every sound at night, I wonder if it's them coming for me. I buried my brother's secret, but in doing so, I buried myself. And now, years later, I still ask myself, should I have spoken up? Would he still be alive if I hadn't protected him? Or would I have been the one in that grave instead? You tell me, if your own brother confessed murder to you, would you keep his secret? Or would you betray him to save yourself?
Secrets don't stay hidden in the West. There are a lot of secrets in the West. The next one might shock you. Let's move to next one.
Confession 2. She was my teacher, but also my husband's secret. I never imagined my marriage would unravel in the very place I thought was safest, the school where I sent my own children. My name is Claire, I'm 38, from Manchester. I married young, built a home, built trust, or so I thought. My husband, Daniel, was quiet, hardworking, the type of man everyone thought was reliable. But I didn't realize, sometimes silence isn't peace. Sometimes silence is a mask. It started with little changes. He suddenly began volunteering at school events, something he'd never done before. I just want to support the kids, he'd say, with that easy smile that used to melt me. But there was a flicker in his eyes, a restlessness I couldn't quite name. And then, there was her, Ms. Taylor, my daughter's literature teacher. She was elegant, confident, the type who commanded a room without trying. The first time I saw the two of them talking in the hallway, there was a spark, not a friendly spark, a spark that made my stomach tighten. I brushed it off. I told myself I was paranoid, insecure. After all, she was a teacher, respected, intelligent. Surely I was overthinking, but the signs multiplied. He'd come home late, claiming staff meetings ran long. He suddenly started quoting poetry at dinner, lines I knew came straight from her classroom. Even the way he dressed began to change, like a man trying to impress. The breaking point came one Friday afternoon. I arrived early to pick up my daughter, and as I walked past the staff room, I froze. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, I saw my husband's hand on hers. Not a casual touch, not a friendly gesture. It was intimate, familiar, the kind of touch a man gives a woman he can't resist. My throat tightened, my knees weakened. I couldn't even breathe. My daughter tugged my hand, asking why we weren't moving. But I just stood there, rooted in betrayal. That night, when I asked him about it, he didn't deny it. He didn't even apologize. He just looked at me with cold eyes and said, "You were never enough. She understands me in ways you never could." In that moment, I felt my world fracture into pieces I couldn't put back together. The man I thought I knew, the marriage I thought was safe, the family I thought was solid, all of it, a lie. After that night, everything shifted. I thought betrayal would feel like fire. Sharp, burning, impossible to ignore. It felt like drowning, slow, silent, suffocating. I tried to fight for us. God knows I did. I begged him to think of our children. I asked him to remember the years we had built together. Spiritually, he belonged to her, but in reality, Daniel was gone. Not physically. He still lived under the same roof. But emotionally, every time I walked past the school, I felt the walls mocking me. The whispers of students and parents felt heavier, sharper, like they knew. And the worst part, Ms. Taylor never once looked ashamed. If anything, she seemed proud, as though stealing a husband was some kind of achievement. One evening I caught them together again. Not in secret this time, but openly laughing at a cafe across town. The image burned itself into me. The man I once trusted with my heart, holding her hand where anyone could see. It was the moment I realized I wasn't just betrayed. I was replaced. The divorce was quick, cold, efficient. He didn't fight for me, or for the family. He walked away with her at his side, leaving me to pick up the shards of a life we once promised would be forever. Now, years later, I still feel the echo of that betrayal. I still see my daughter's teacher in my nightmares. Still hear his words, "You were never enough," slicing through my self-worth like a knife. But here's the truth I've learned. Sometimes the people you think you know best are the ones capable of destroying you the most. And yet, I still wonder, if you were me, standing in that doorway, watching your husband caress your child's teacher, would you have walked away quietly? Or would you have fought to expose them no matter the cost?
Confession 3. I lied in court, and an innocent man went to prison. Do you know what it feels like to destroy someone's life with nothing but your words? I do, and I live with that sin every single day. It was 1998, in a small town outside Dallas, Texas. I was 19 years old, reckless, angry, desperate to be seen. Back then, I thought the world owed me something. I wanted revenge for every slight, every man who ignored me, every person who thought I was nothing. And then came Marcus. Marcus was a quiet man in his late 20s, worked at the local hardware store, lived alone, hardly spoke to anyone. To me, he was invisible, until one night at a party. Someone offered me a ride home, and Marcus happened to be there too. He walked past me without even noticing, and I hated him for that. I don't know why. Maybe because I was young and bitter. Maybe because I needed someone to blame for the emptiness in my chest. Or maybe because the devil himself whispered it into my ear. A week later, something terrible happened in town. A woman was attacked late at night, and the police had no suspects. The town was hungry for justice, desperate for someone to blame. And in that chaos, I opened my mouth. I told them I saw Marcus near the scene that night. I told them he had followed me before. I told them lies I spun out of thin air, and they believed me. The trial was fast. The evidence was weak. But my words were fire. I sat on that stand, raised my hand, swore on the Bible, and damned an innocent man. I can still see his eyes, the way Marcus looked at me in the courtroom. He didn't beg. He didn't shout. He just stared, confused, broken, like he couldn't understand why this was happening. And when the judge said, 20 years in state prison, I felt a rush, a sick kind of power. But it didn't last, because the moment the gavel hit the wood, the silence in that courtroom became my prison. I ruined him. And for what? For nothing but my own emptiness. The first year after the trial, I convinced myself it was over. I told myself Marcus must have done something wrong, that the court wouldn't send him away without reason. But deep down, I knew it was me, only me. At night I couldn't sleep. I saw his eyes everywhere, in the mirror, in my dreams, even in strangers on the street. His stare followed me like a curse. By the 5th year, I heard whispers. People in town said Marcus had changed, that in prison he barely spoke, that he kept to himself, that he carried the sadness of a man who had lost everything. His mother died while he was locked away. He couldn't even go to the funeral. That was when the guilt turned into poison. Every laugh, every smile, every small joy I had, it all felt stolen from him. And then one day, it all collapsed. New evidence came out. DNA. Proof that Marcus could never have been the man they were after. The real criminal, a drifter long gone, had resurfaced in another state. Marcus had wasted 12 years of his life behind bars. Before they finally released him, the whole town celebrated his freedom. Reporters came. Cameras flashed. People cheered. But Marcus didn't smile. He looked hollow, empty, like a man who had died a long time ago. And me? I hid. I stayed inside my house, shaking, sweating, wondering if he'd come for me, wondering if he'd tell the world what I'd done. But he never did. The truth? He never even mentioned my name. He walked free, carrying the scars while I carried the sin. It's been over 20 years now. I have children of my own. I look into their faces, and I pray they never learn what kind of monster their mother really is. Because I didn't just lie in court. I murdered a man's life with nothing but my tongue. And some nights, when the house is quiet, I hear his voice. Not angry, Not vengeful, just tired. He whispers, "Why me?" And I have no answer, because sometimes the worst crimes are not the ones committed with blood and knives, but the ones committed with lies.
Don't be surprised it may be your neighbor or family's confessing. You won't believe what happened in Confession 5. Wait till the end.
Confession 4. My father's mistress destroyed our family, and I helped her. I was 17 the first time I saw her. Her name was Isabel. She wasn't my mother, she was the other woman. My father brought her to one of my school games. Bold, like she belonged. She smiled at me with painted lips, clapping harder than my own mother ever did. And my father? He couldn't take his eyes off her. At first, I hated her. I hated the way she laughed. The way she touched his arm. The way she replaced the warmth of my mother's embrace with her perfume. But then, she noticed me. She started taking me shopping, whispering things in my ear, telling me my mother was too soft, too weak, and that if I wanted to survive in this world, I needed to be strong. Like her, and God help me, I believed her. When my mother cried at night, I stopped comforting her. When my father stayed out late, I covered for him. When Isabel whispered that my mother was dragging us down, I nodded. I betrayed my own mother for a woman who wasn't even blood. The night everything broke, my mother found lipstick on his shirt. She begged me to tell the truth, to back her up, to help her fight for our family. But I didn't. I stood there in silence, watching her fall apart. And when she screamed, when she said, "Why are you doing this to me?" I looked away. From that moment, Isabel wasn't just my father's mistress. She was my ally. Weeks later, my mother left the house. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just packed a bag and walked out. And Isabel moved in, right into her place, right into my home. At 17, I thought I'd won. I thought I was finally choosing the stronger side. But what I didn't realize was that I was feeding a monster. Because Isabel's love was never free. It was a trap. And once she had my father, she set her sights on me. It didn't take long for Isabel to show me who she really was. She wasn't satisfied with being my father's mistress. She wanted control. Over everything. Over him. Over me. Over the entire house. At first, she gave me gifts, clothes, money, attention. She told me I was different from other girls, stronger, smarter. She said she saw herself in me, and I believed her. But the more she gave, the more she took. She whispered in my father's ear until he barely looked at me anymore. She told him I was reckless, spoiled, ungrateful. She turned him against me, brick by brick, until I was nothing but a shadow in my own home. The day it all came crashing down, I walked into the kitchen and found my father yelling at my mother on the phone. She was begging him to see me, to listen, to remember who we were before Isabel. He slammed the phone down and said, "Don't call here again." And Isabel just smiled. That smile haunts me, because in that moment, I realized I hadn't just lost my mother. I had lost my father too, and I had helped her steal them both. Years later, when Isabel finally left, when she drained my father dry and walked away with another man, it was too late. My family was gone. My mother wanted nothing to do with me. My father died bitter and alone, and I was left with the silence. I helped destroy my own family, not with my hands, but with my silence. I thought I was choosing strength. But really, I was choosing betrayal, and that's something I'll never forgive myself for.
Confession 5. The night I killed a stranger and no one ever knew. Do you know what it feels like to take a life? Most people imagine blood, violence, screams. But for me, it was silence. It was late, past midnight, on a deserted road outside Manchester, England. The rain had been falling hard, blinding my headlights, drumming against the roof of my car. I was tired. I should have pulled over, but I kept driving. Then, out of nowhere, a man stumbled into the road. A stranger, soaked, staggering, like he didn't even care if the world hit him. I swerved, I braked, but it was too late. The sound, it still lives inside me. The dull thud, the body collapsing against the hood, the glass cracking, and then silence. I froze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight I thought my bones would break. I wanted to call the police. I wanted to do the right thing. But then the thought hit me. What if they blame me? What if they don't believe it was an accident? I got out. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned the rain. The man was lying still, his eyes wide open, staring into nothing. He wasn't moving. I had killed him. And in that moment, Instead of dialing for help, I did something I can never forgive myself for. I dragged his body off the road, into the ditch, into the darkness where no one could see. And then I drove away. I thought I could bury it. Bury him. Bury the truth. But the truth doesn't stay buried. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Every time I saw a headline about an unidentified man found dead, I froze. Every time a police car drove past me, I broke into a sweat. But no one ever came. No questions, no accusations, nothing. It was like the man had never existed, like his life had meant nothing. And that was the worst part. Because I realized I wasn't haunted by the fear of being caught. I was haunted by the silence, by the fact that this stranger had lived, breathed, and then died by my hands. And the world didn't care. No one mourned him. No one asked for him. No one spoke his name. But I remember his face. Every night, every time I closed my eyes, I killed a stranger. And no one ever knew. No one, except me. So what should I do? Should I report to the police or keep it a secret?
You've just heard 5 confessions from the West. Voices that should have remained in silence, but tonight they were spoken aloud. A brother's secret buried until murder returned. A friendship destroyed by betrayal. A lie that sent an innocent man to prison. A family torn apart by a mistress. And a night where a stranger's life was taken and hidden forever. These are not stories. These are confessions. And behind every smile, every wave, every quiet house in the West, there are secrets like these waiting to be told. If one confession shook you tonight, don't leave without subscribing, liking, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement doesn't just help the channel. It keeps these hidden voices alive. This was Western Confessions, Episode 2. Until next time, and remember, in the West, secrets never stay buried.